Hello, everyone. Welcome to our podcast. Let's have the conversation with us, your host. I am Mr. Carlton, and I also have my co host here.
Hey everyone, it's Coach Ruiz. Happy New Year. Happy February to everybody coming through. Thanks for listening to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. We do appreciate this is episode 2. Hopefully, you've had a chance to listen to our first episode, which gives you more clarity about who we are and why we're doing this podcast. So go ahead and listen to that one if you haven't done so yet. And we go over the flow of the podcast and the segments and things like that.
Yeah, for
Good
sure.
information for you to have before you listen to this one. So we're going to go ahead and start with the quote of the day, which I have this podcast, which is true authority and true leadership come from knowing who you are and not pretending to be anything else. And that was said by Robert Iger, the former CEO of Disney, who is my mentor in my head. Hopefully someone will send this to
I
him.
love that thought, man. I love that
Yes.
thought. You know, I always wish that we could get to that point sooner. I was on a panel interview yesterday, or I was on a panel for students yesterday for a university here in Portland where I live, and I was like waving my hands like, "Hey, everybody, I'm from the future. Like these things matter for your career." And I think this is what I was trying to tell. I was trying to tell them like, you got to know yourself. You got to understand yourself, how you're wired, and why you are how you are. And that's a great quote. I mean, Iger, he knows a couple things, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, it is. It is a great quote, and I think that is something that is so true. You really have to know who you are
Mm,
if you're going to lead, because the people you're leading are going to be able to know that you don't know who you are, and that may or
hmm
may not work for
Don't
them
you
or
think,
you.
Carlton? I'm not trying to sidetrack us, but don't you think like we are living in a time where like currency is equivalent to authenticity?
Oh,
Like
that's a
people could,
word.
ooh, like don't you? I feel like if you are not authentic at your workplace, at wherever you spend your time during the day, people can now more than ever, I feel like really see through that.
I think so too, because we're in a space where validation and seeing the whole person is more important. Like this isn't a culture of you come to work and do your job and you go home.
Right, right,
And
right.
and people like the paycheck isn't enough. I have to know you
Hmm.
are invested in me as a person and
Right.
and the things that are important to me outside of getting my paycheck, outside of the roles and
100%.
responsibility of this role. Um,
Completely agree. I love it. Yep.
okay. So this actually is a prereq to what I've been thinking. So this segment, we take turn sharing with each other what we're thinking. This week, I'm gonna go. The next week, Enrique will share what he's thinking, but he's gonna
Yeah.
give me his thoughts on what I'm thinking
Mm,
this week.
mm.
So let's go ahead and so this is our. We're just gonna keep going. Actually, Enrique, we gotta do our monthly challenge first before we do what our thinking is.
I
So
thought you were
let's.
trying to slack off for the month.
Yeah, no, good. So no, I'm sorry, y'all, and I have the script right in front of me. So the monthly challenge is when me and Enrique discuss what are we going to focus on for the upcoming month. Because our goal, one of our goals, is to be disciplined and be really intentional about how we are improving in all areas of our life. So for me, my goal for the month of February is to really focus on my physical and spiritual health. I am working up to working out 5 days a week, changing how I eat. And yes, I want to lose weight and I have a size in mind and a weight in mind. But what's most important to me is making sure that I am having a lifestyle change. I
Mm,
want, like, I want, even when I hit my goal weight, I want this to be my new lifestyle, working out and
mm,
eating healthy and being in control of that. Same thing spiritually is making sure that I am spiritually healthy and making sure that for me it's important to be involved in church and pray and read the word and just be really intentional about spending that meditation time spiritually and being centered in that. So that's my challenge for February. What about you?
yeah, I think I similar boat. I had like a back issue in January.
Hmm.
Something happened to my back, so I finally kind of got rid of the issue in my lower back. And I think I'm back to like working out kind of Enrique. And if y'all follow me on Instagram called Leadership Matters, you will see pictures of the gym where I work out and how I try to motivate people. So I really want to just be able to work out consistently on a weekly basis and combine that with my diet and sleep. I want to be able to get good sleep nowadays. It's hard. I have a couple little humans I have to keep alive and a third on the way. So that'll be three humans I got to keep alive. So I want to be able to sleep a little bit, but really just focus on the working out cause and the diet because I like you, Carlton, want to shed that COVID weight off. So hopefully I could
Yes,
do that.
that is the goal. All
Now you
right.
can go to what you're thinking,
Clearly, it's
Carlton.
important to me. I'm like, I'm thinking it, and now I want to say it. So this is what I'm thinking. So I've been thinking a lot about growth and how most people are in this weird space of wanting their individual growth to be validated and to be seen.
Mm,
But they
mm,
have a hard time seeing and validating someone else if it's a person they had a negative react interaction with in the past. And I like to believe that people can grow and change. Even the people who even the people that I have worked with at work or on projects that I didn't enjoy working with, I believe people can grow and change. It's a choice. Who you are every day is a choice. You're actively choosing to do what you do, say what you say, and say it how you say it and how you treat people. That is a choice. It may not be easy. It may be because of some trauma or because of something in your past that has caused you to show up how you're showing up in the now, but you're still choosing to show up that way. So just like you can choose to show up a certain way, you can choose to grow and change. And I know there's a lot of work in there, there's a lot of nuances in there, but it can still happen if you're committed to that change and you're committed to being the best version of yourself. So that's something that I've been thinking about. And I think for me, I think about the first two teams that I was charged with leading. I was their leader. I call them my Harper team and my first Butler team. They know who they are. I was not prepared to lead them. I made some terrible mistakes and I was not in control of myself. And going back to that quote, I didn't know who I was. So me not knowing who I was as a leader really made things difficult for the people that I was leading. My Harper team, we worked in a very crazy, emotional, and stressful environment that I could not change. And we were partly there because of the environment. And what I could have done was counteract that environment with a steady and calm leadership. I could have been a better advocate for that team. But instead, I was a hot mess, and at times I made things work. I took things personally from that team, not knowing that they need a space to vent. And I just wasn't the best leader for that team. And of course, they weren't perfect either. But the thing is I was in the leadership role. They were not. So the responsibility was on me to cultivate that space where they could have thrived and been them. That was 12 years ago. I
mm,
have changed drastically and my leadership style. And I would hope that the people on that team encounter them would assume positive growth versus assuming negative, like complacency or being stagnant, right? Because if I ever
Mhm.
meet them again and we ever cross paths, I would take them for who they were and not hold them accountable to something they may have did or said to me that I didn't like 12 years ago, because to me is immature, and that's just my opinion. So for me, that is something that I think about a lot. And then I think about my Butler team, because I had two Butler teams. The first one, they were probably the strongest team I've ever had the opportunity to lead. They were way more mature than me. And I learned a lot about perception versus intent with that team. My misperceived, and that made me look at what were the behaviors that I was acting out versus what I was saying. Because I would be like, okay, their perception of me isn't what I'm attending to do. I need to really think about that. But since it's hard for people to see and validate your growth, you have to be strong in your and know that you are not who you used to be. It is important to not let people hold you as a victim to your past mistakes, and to try to treat you like you used to be.
Hmm.
And my whole thing, what I like to say is that you don't have to validate my growth, but you will respect me and who I choose to be today. And you will respect the changes that I've made, and you will respect the boundaries that I have created for my well being, so that I can be the best person that I need to be for myself and those around me. And for me, I've never been more clear on who I am today than ever before in my life. And I know what I'm going to do, what I'm not going to do. I know my boundaries, and I'm okay with of who I'm choosing to be, because at the foundation of who I am now is I just want everyone to have joy. I want everyone to thrive, and I want everyone to get what they need and to do what is best for them, because that's what I'm going to do. And a lot of that has to do on my foundation of faith and
I
trying to
love
be a decent Christian.
it. That's man, that's awesome, man. I love that reflection and kind of what you're thinking. A couple thoughts that I have on kind of what you just shared. Do you know what you have at your advantage? You're probably not going to answer because you don't know, because I know, right? Um, you have time to your advantage, right? I'm willing to bet that 12 years ago, the teams you were part of, like all that stuff that you just shared, I'm willing to bet you were like 80% the same person. But time time changes people, things grow, people grow, we have families, responsibilities change. I'm willing to bet that you were probably very close to who you are now. It's just that time has seasoned us. Time has changed us. I feel very similar. I There's things in my life that I'm like, oh my gosh, like 10 years ago, I was like off the cuff, bam, bam, hyper intense guy. And now I'm like, I feel like I have a different way of engaging, but my energy is still unmatched to most people that I run across, right? So I don't think people in general change a lot. Like I'm
Mm.
willing to bet, even when you were like a young little lad, you were who you at your core, you were who you were, and you continue to be that person. It's just that you are right about the things you say. Like we choose to engage how we engage. I tell my son all the time, like you have a choice right now. Right now, you have a choice to do this or do that. What do you want to do? I mean, most of the time, if they don't want to make the good choice, I'm putting them in the garage. Don't report me, but that's just a threat, So never really do it that much. But I think we do have choices, and one thing that stood out to me about kind of how you were talking about people and like if they you would hope that they would um, assume positive intent. The thing that came to mind for me when you said that is like I and this sounds really horrible. So if you're out there listening, the two of you out there maybe one day, you shouldn't care. It shouldn't matter to you. It shouldn't matter that your team from back in the day cares because that doesn't matter. It's right now, today, tomorrow, the future is what's going to matter. So like if you ran across them at the little, you know, burger shack somewhere and they were like, you know what, Carlton, like I assume negative intent. Meh. Like you would be like, I would hope that you would be like, you know what? Thank you for that. I appreciate that. But it doesn't matter to today. And maybe like however you impacted them in the past was not the best or whatever. But you know what? It's the past. Like I've had crappy managers in the recent past, and if I ran into them, I'd be like, "Good luck with stuff for you," because I am who I am today. So I'd say don't care what people think. And it's really hard to not care what people think because we tend
Well,
to care.
well,
But
my messaging wasn't about caring. My messaging was I think it's interesting that people want to be validated, but they have a hard time validating.
yeah, I feel that for sure.
Because
I
when you
think,
when and that's the HR in me. So when you know I do these mediations. This is why I don't do
hmm
employee relations anymore. But when you do these mediations with and you hear you did this to me,
yeah,
I want you to hear
right,
what I'm saying. No one wants to validate the other a person's growth. No one wants to
right,
give the other person credit. And that's why I said that regardless, people want to hold me accountable to that
yeah,
happened over a decade ago, 5 years ago,
yeah,
2 years ago, 1 year ago. I'm
yesterday,
different than who I was a year ago. And if
yeah,
you can't see that, that's fine.
exactly.
You don't
That's on
have to
them.
see that. But well, let me say this: what you won't do is hold me to your last memory of me.
Yes, exactly.
That's what I said, and that's what I want people to
Yeah,
understand is that
for sure.
I think it's important that because I like to see the glass half full, so I'm always going to encourage people to assume positive intent, to assume
Yeah,
that someone has grown, is doing better, and if they don't do better, then fine, they didn't do better. But what if they did, and you missed that opportunity of healing in that moment? So that's where I'm at with that, and
yeah.
I don't necessarily care what people say about me anymore, unless
Yep,
I do care about my
exactly.
what my inner circle thinks because
Yeah,
if you're in my inner circle and if your opinion doesn't matter, then why are you in my inner circle?
yeah.
Um,
Something, I mean, I don't know when it was for you, but for me, I used to care a lot. And I think in these last, maybe the last maybe 3, 4 years, something switched to me. It was like, you know what? I know me and I don't need to care. Like, I don't need to be a people pleaser, you know? I'm okay with being who I am and how I am. And if you like it, you like it. If you don't, then you're probably not going to be mixing around with Enrique that much during, interactions. So, no, I
yeah,
love it, man. I see a lot of, continued growth within you, and I always hope that people can have kind of that mindset, as they grow older.
yeah. So I stopped caring when I was 30, right? I stopped caring what people thought about me when I was around 30. But what I was having a hard time letting go of is why people were treating me a certain way when I didn't treat them that way. I had a lot like, and I had to actually have to leave a job because it was
Yeah.
so toxic. Because I was being presented as someone that I wasn't even in all the things that I was. So I was in a director role and an HR role. So I was in a lot of behind the scenes conversations
hmm
about people that worked on staff that I kind of grew up with at this company.
Yeah.
Like,
Got
and
it.
now I'm in this what they consider a power position,
Mm,
and it was so interesting that when something bad happened to them, whether they didn't get the raise they wanted or a promotion or they got, put on a improvement plan, whenever something negative happened, it was automatically, well, Carlton did it. But
yeah.
whenever something positive happened, I got no credit. And what was very interesting is that if you can blame me for the negative, you should also be able to blame me for the
Yeah.
positive, because that doesn't it didn't make sense to me. And then they would treat me a certain way, and what ended up happening is that I wasn't responsible for any of those type of things. Like, and I think that's what my mentor, then boss, was really confused about, is that they would, like, literally, someone got fired one day. I wasn't even at work that day, and they said it
And they
was my
were
fault.
like, Carlton,
You're
Carlton
the
did
reason why
it.
I got fired. And I'm like, I
But
wasn't
isn't
even
it?
at work. I didn't even know you got fired, because that wasn't my role. My role wasn't any, there was no part of my role that was attached to disciplinary action. No part of
Right.
my role when I was a
But
manager, senior manager, or director. But I will tell you this: what was part of my role was making sure people got paid correctly, people got their promotions, got
mm,
interviews, and had a quality interview, were advocated for. There's about a
right.
good dozen people who make the money they make because of my influence or straight decision making, but they would never
Right.
give me that credit for very petty reasons. And that was
Right.
the issue I was having with letting that
Yeah.
go. That they are choosing to respond to you this way and not give you the benefit of the doubt, not engage with you and let's have the conversation, which is the name of this
Yeah.
podcast. I'm always
Right.
ready to
Right.
have, let's have the conversation, but you won't have the conversation with me. But what you will do is go drag my name to everybody else.
And
And
isn't
that's the
that
thing I was
isn't
having a hard time letting go of. It's not,
and
I can't
like
control that.
don't you think that that's kind of just like the nature of just lack of leadership in general, and not only people, but in our institutional structures? And aren't you glad that we're now more than ever in, a lot of companies, I would say that that's starting to, it's like a shift. Like now more than ever, people are able to have those kinds of conversations. I don't know. I feel like I've seen a shift in the last kind of decade, you know, of now people are
I think it's
more
also
open
about
to
where
giving that. Yeah, where you
about the
work.
culture. Yeah, where you work. I think in my current
Oh yeah.
job, which I won't mention for my own privacy, but in my current job, I they have the conversations and
100%.
they're
Right.
very
And
very
aren't you
direct and
aren't you glad that you
yeah.
went through that stuff in the past and now you're like, "Oh my gosh, I understand like the comparison of like cruddy leadership, and now oh my gosh, it is night and day." And now you're able to be like, let's continue to foster that. Let's continue to
Yeah.
to make that be a thing, because those other companies and those other leaders, they will fade, they will go away, and they won't grow. They won't be
And,
leaders.
and
Like,
let's broaden
you
that.
know,
It's not just leaders. It's also your coworkers. It's also people that report to
yeah,
you. Like, it's
100%.
it's the whole atmosphere. And the thing that I learned, and I told my mentor this, I finally had to get to a place that I'm going to be me, and whatever comes of that, I have to live and die by owning who I am. And
Yeah,
part of who I was in that environment is, if you would have come to me and said, hey, Sally said X, Y, and Z, my natural approach is to go to Sally
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. I
to
mean, yeah,
say,
for
hey,
sure.
Sally, I hear you said da da da
Sally,
da. Let's have a conversation so that we can
right.
get on the same page. And when I would do that, it would make people so nervous. Oh, well, that's not what I meant. Oh, I didn't say. No, no. And it's like, no, 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 no. Do you want me to get Enrique in here too so we can all talk? Because to me, I don't. I am here to. I work
Yeah,
in nonprofit, so I'm here to do some good work to support people
Yeah.
to get this stuff done, and this is slowing us down. So if I did something that you found offensive or incorrect, don't you think I should know so I can have an opportunity to talk through
Man.
to you about it? And if we both agree that, oh, I did do that thing after you heard my perspective,
Right.
don't you want to give me the opportunity to improve? Aren't you invested in me being a better coworker and a better leader because we're all here for the same goal? Or do you want to just back channel and gossip because that's who you are?
And I feel like I've been in that same or very similar situation. And I mean, I can speak for my company. Like at my company, it's like I am very fortunate to have a boss that I report to that understands Enrique, like understands me as a person and how Enrique is like wired.
Mm.
And I think and my teammate, and he's kind of built our team so that we understand and we really know each other, right? So like that is, I think, what makes the team that I work on unique and like kind of like we just crush. We do really well together. And I think it's because at our core, we feel like we are known by our leader, we are embraced, and we are like empowered by our leader. And I think in other past roles and companies, that hasn't been the case. Maybe for you, but for me, for sure, where it's like, man, like if only my boss would really understand me. Like if they would just understand how I am, why I am. And I swear it took my boss like 2 days to figure me out because he just cared enough to dive deep into the person of Enrique. And I think companies, corporate companies, institutions, nonprofits that do that, and it's hard work. You know how it is, Carlton. It's hard work to like dive deep into the person. If companies, corporations can do that, holy moly, like your workforce will better perform. They will better engage. They will better crush the job that they have to do your make your product, design your thing, make your ship your container, whatever. I just, I mean, like I said, I feel really fortunate to be somewhere where I'm like, oh my gosh, like my boss wants me to do more things, like empowering me, like believing in me, like so. Yeah, man, it's. I'm glad you are where you are because it sounds like it's a good situation. I just really hope, people, if y'all want to comment below or comment wherever this lands, kind of your thoughts about how to better position yourself at a company or a company where the culture is a culture that will not only embrace you but empower you to grow within the organization. Because that's it. I think people are like, especially now, COVID, the world's still kind of on fire, but things are kind of getting better. I feel like people are yearning for that. They're yearning for being part of an organization that cares about not only the employee and their title, but the employee, their title, and what that person brings alongside with them. Their who they are, their family, their culture, their what they represent. Like people want to feel that embrace. And if companies can really learn how to do that well and organically, oh my gosh, game
I,
changer.
and I would give people advice. I just gave one of my mentees this advice. If you're somewhere that doesn't have that type of environment, you need to find that environment somewhere else because
100%.
you can't change the culture by yourself.
100%. 100%.
And you still have a choice because then it becomes an issue of like you're this stressed out, you're this unhappy, but you chose to go back to work the next day. So
Mm,
there's the element of I was at a place I had to leave, and I did, and I found a new job, and
right.
and that was what was best for me and my life and what I needed to do. I wasn't gonna try to change them because they showed me who they were.
Yep. Yep. I mean, Carlton, I hope you're not encouraging people just quitting up and quitting. We could do a whole podcast on like how to transition
No,
well. In
no.
that,
So I didn't. So again, Enrique, I didn't say I quit my job. I said I found another job.
I'm just saying, don't, someone might be like, I'm gonna quit tomorrow. No, hold up, wait a
No,
minute.
I didn't
Let's.
say that. I did not say you should quit your job. But hold on, because this is another thing, Enrique. We don't know what people situations are.
That's true.
I've quit a job without another job lined up, and that's because I had a supportive wife who felt my mental well being was more important than a
Yeah,
paycheck, and she gave
that's
me
why.
the space to quit my job and to take my time to find another job.
That's
So
why we
like,
need to do a podcast on helping people transition well.
well, according to their scenario, because if you come in
Accord,
here
yep.
and you heard me say quit your job today, that's not what I said. And no one will agree with you. That is not what I said. What I said is
I
if you are
know.
working somewhere that doesn't benefit you, the employee and employee
Yep.
relationship needs to be mutually beneficial beyond services equals paycheck.
Hmm.
It has
Yep.
to be more than that in today's time. So if you are
For
not
sure.
getting what you need, if your job is not serving you, you
Hmm.
need to take the time to find a job, create a transition plan that works for you and
Yep.
your family, and find that place that serves you as well, because the days of we should just be happy to have a job, those days are
Yep.
gone.
Hmm. Now it's the other way. Like companies should be happy to have people.
Yes. And with
Like it
that,
should be. Yeah.
I'm sorry, we're gonna be talking, we're going over time, but yes, I'm gonna let you finish, and then we're gonna take a quick break, and then we'll come back.
Okay. I'm good. I'm good. We can keep moving.
All right, y'all, thank you all for listening thus far. We will be right back after this quick break.
All right, and we are back. Our next little session here is in the press. And how do you lead? This week I got it, so I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer on this topic, but I really was impacted by this a little bit. Um, for those that don't know, listening, there's a gentleman, uh, Chamath Palihapitiya. He is a Sri Lankan-born Canadian and American venture capitalist. He's an engineer, SPAC sponsor, founder, CEO of a company called Social Capital. Chamath, he was an early senior executive at Facebook. He worked there from like 2007 to like 2011. In my opinion, I think he's a big kind of talking individual when it comes to like global money, money markets. Um, I would say he has a take on like whenever a big global company makes a big money move, he usually comes on some kind of, you know, company's like television show and like will have a take on it. So this week he made some comments. I'm not gonna regurgitate the comments, and he made these comments, and they just did not bode well with a lot of people. And this Chamath has been kind of really kind of building himself as like, in my opinion, I think I mean, he kind of has a really good take and grip on like global money markets, companies, and why things are how they are. Um, I'll let the people listening research kind of his comments. But the comments he made just did not bode well for him. And now he's getting a lot of flack from everybody, the whole mob that tries to cancel people. And so my take on in the press today is like, as leaders, and this kind of goes back to what you were saying, Carlton, about knowing thyself. Um, you know, Whether you're like an entry level person at a company or a multi billionaire like Chamath, like Mr. Chamath, like we should do our best to use our platforms for like the uplifting, the betterment of the global kind of community. And in general, I think he's like he's a pretty. I mean, he's brilliant. He's a brilliant person, but he's on a podcast and he's like saying certain things that just maybe are his opinion for sure, maybe for sure, but I just think to comment on like my quote here is like with great power comes great responsibility, that Spider-Man quote. I mean, man, this individual has tremendous power, and to say certain things that impact certain people, man, it was just kind of like for me, I was just like, man, that's a big bummer. And, I can understand where he's maybe coming from, and maybe like the regular person. a regular individual that maybe doesn't understand who this gentleman is and what they do in their career, I can understand how this person, how people can be like up in arms about it. But we just have to be conscious of like, being able to know our impact. Like when we were little, Carlton, like sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Words, like words don't only hurt; they like reverberate through like the globe now. Like if little
Mhm.
Timmy bullied me on the in elementary school or whoever, and they made fun of my teeth and my big nose, all that stuff. And yeah, it sucked. But now, like, oh my gosh, the world can hear it through like all the platforms. I just think as leaders, we have to understand we we have impact and we have power. And we like I just think he should have used a better example, better words to articulate his thought, which like I said, I understand where he's coming from, but he could have done a little better. So that's my in the press for today. What do you think?
No, I think, it's so funny because we had a lot of intentional conversations before this podcast and making sure we are clear what we're saying before we say it. And I think people get in these public positions and they don't take seriously what they're saying before they say it. And we all, you know, make a mistake, and
Yeah, I
I
mean,
wonder what he'll say
he
coming
he's
out
been
of
walking
this.
it back. He's been
Oh,
walking it
okay.
back already. But like, man, like
But that's the thing, though. Leaders make mistakes.
leaders make this. He's owning up to it, and he's doing his thing. But
Now, if he
um,
keeps doing it, then that's a different conversation.
yeah,
Because you can
for
only make
sure.
so many you can only make the same mistake so many times.
Right,
Which is
right,
why you have to be really intentional about what you're
yeah,
saying, why you're saying it, and being clear that a lot of people are going to hear it and
right.
are going to have their own perception of it. And that's the thing, because to me, it's one thing if some people get upset, but if most people are getting upset, then there's something he should reflect on.
Yeah, I mean, the I think the bummer about these kinds of things is it leaves a mark, in a way. And like if I was like, let's say I managed Chamath, right? He was my little recruiter supporter individual here at my company, and he made a mistake like this. He said some stuff on an interview that wasn't appropriate or whatever, or like didn't land well with the interviewee. Like I would try my best to like give him good feedback, have grace, and build him up again. Like he made a mistake, and if he could correct his mistake, then let's go be better. I and I would forgive and forget about it. Like let's go. You're not. It doesn't determine or dictate who you are as a person. Um, but I don't think the world does that. I don't think the
Mm.
world has a ton of like grace and like, oh, okay, yeah. I think the world tends to like leave that mark there for a while. And, hopefully, I'm sure he'll bounce back. I mean, this guy is very powerful and awesome. I think he's awesome still. He's doing a lot of things, and, the venture capital world. So I just wish the world would have more grace for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I do too. But you live and you learn.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Sometimes you
Right,
live
right.
and you never learn because you're stubborn. Um, all right. Should we transition to our book review before we close
Boom,
out?
let's do it. Let's do it.
All right. So the book review for the month of August. So like I said in our first episode, we're going to choose a book and then we're just going to talk about that book throughout the month. We encourage you to get it and read it. It's been helpful to us. The book that I'm choosing for February, and the coach will choose a book for March. I chose Ride of a Lifetime by Robert Iger. He is this former CEO of Disney. And like I said earlier, he is a mentor in my head, and we're going to speak that into existence that I will be able to meet him one day. Because that book was so profound for me because he talks about leadership, the ups and downs, the struggles, the things that he's learned about himself, about people, the mistakes he's made. And it's like a tool belt of like leadership do's and don'ts. And I really enjoyed it. The quotes that I wanted to share from the book today. One is, if leaders don't articulate their priorities clearly, then the people around them don't know what their own priorities should be. Time and energy and capital get wasted. And he talks about leadership from a very intentional place and a very selfless place. Empathy is a prerequisite to the sound management of creativity, and respect is critical. And he talks about that in all forms, all levels of the team. And there's a story in the book about how the people who he reported to, how he was able to get them to operate as a team versus competitors, which I really appreciated. And then the last thing I'll share, this last quote is, if you approach and engage people with respect and empathy, the seemingly impossible can become real. So it's a really good book. I'll share some more nuggets in the next episode next week. But yeah, ride of a lifetime.
That's awesome. I got to pick that up.
So any last parting thoughts?
Yeah, I think I would encourage people, the things we talk about today, if you listening, the two of you listening right now, if you feel like someone can really like take something from the things that we're saying, or if you took something away and you think someone else can, pass it along. Tag a friend on LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever platform. Send it pigeon carrier somehow, link. Spread the word, connect people with these thoughts. We'll be here. We're trying to, do our thing and be as authentic as we can. And, we're not perfect ourselves. We got a lot of a lot of room to grow ourselves. And we're just thankful for you all listening. Subscribe if you're able to subscribe, click the links and all that jazz. You know what to do. Thank you for listening.
So with that, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. My handle is Mr._Carlton Now. The podcast Instagram is _conversation today. And then our YouTube page is Let's Have the Conversation. Please go ahead and subscribe there, as this video will be posted there. Enrique, where can they find you?
Usually on LinkedIn, Enrique Ruiz. I work for a company called Thesis Agency here in Portland, Oregon, so look me up. I tend to post things there all the time. And on Instagram, I tend to poke around a little bit. There you can find me at Leadership Matters. I'm the person poking around about leadership things. And sometimes an occasional picture of my kids being crazy and wild. Thank you all for listening. Appreciate you all. Look forward to the next episode.
All right, everyone. Have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.